Hello and welcome viewers, I am Pia and you're watching NewsX World. Let's take a look at the top headlines this hour. US President Donald Trump is heading to Israel tomorrow amid a truce and major hostage prisoner exchange deal that he helped broker. He is expected to visit Jerusalem and may address the Knesset as part of the historic ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. Meanwhile, later today, aid trucks will start trickling into Gaza. As the United States government shutdown enters its 11th day, the White House has started laying off thousands of federal workers across several agencies. Over 4,000 Fed workers have been laid off. US President Donald Trump has stated that the job cuts will be Democrat-oriented. Meanwhile, union leaders have warned that Trump's move could have devastating effects on services relied upon by millions of Americans. President Donald Trump has announced that he will impose a sweeping 100% tariff on all imports from China, effective on the 1st of November, over and above the 30% tariff rates already in place. Trump's move comes in direct retaliation to what the White House calls Beijing's hostile restrictions on the export of rare earth minerals. Meanwhile, China has hit back with billions in port fees for US ships docking in China. A massive explosion has leveled the Tennessee military explosives plant. At least 19 people are unaccounted for and many others feared dead. Federal and local agencies are on the scene, but the cause of this explosion is not yet ascertained. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has made a striking comparison between Hamas and Kremlin. He stated that Hamas has stopped fighting but not Kremlin and Putin. He has further added to this that Russia must be stopped by force. Now, this comes amid the raging war between Russia and Ukraine, the situation which is escalating with missiles and drones being fired and energy infrastructure being targeted. The Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan has claimed responsibility for deadly attacks in several northwestern districts that have killed many security personnel and a few civilians as well. The attacks reportedly include a suicide bombing on a police training school. The attacks have come hours after Afghanistan's Taliban government accused Pakistan of violating Kabul's sovereign territory via airstrikes. French President Emmanuel Macron has reappointed Prime Minister Sébastien Lecornu just days after his resignation. The unexpected reappointment is being seen as a high-stakes bid to end a political deadlock in France. Lecornu is now tasked with the urgent mission of forming a new cabinet and delivering a critical national budget by the end of the year. Floods across Mexico have turned tragic. At least 28 people have lost their lives and a trail of destruction has been left behind. There are several people who are unaccounted for as well. Mexican President Sheinbaum has stated that the government is working towards supporting the population and reopening the roads as soon as possible. Alright viewers, those are the headlines and our top focus. Israeli forces have commenced the first phase of withdrawal as thousands of displaced Palestinians are now returning to their homes in Khan Yunis and northern Gaza. Hamas is set to release the remaining Israeli hostages in exchange for the release of around 2,000 Palestinian prisoners from Israeli jails. Meanwhile, the United Nations is preparing to deliver large-scale humanitarian aid into Gaza with fuel and medical supplies expected to reach millions of civilians very soon. This in fact comes after US President Donald Trump mediated the ceasefire deal. He has said that he believes that the ceasefire will hold and has plans to travel to Egypt as well for signing ceremony early next week. Now, in the next phase, mediators will focus on the more complex issues, including Hamas's disarmament, Gaza's future governance, the presence of international government, and Israel's full troop withdrawal. Meanwhile, in Tel Aviv's Hostages Square, a father of an Israeli hostage has stated that his family awaits the call to reunite with their son at the Reem military base. He's also extended his gratitude to President Trump. Listen in.
Arrived to the Hostages Square. We are very exciting, waiting for our son and for all the 48 hostages. Want to thank many thanks for President Trump. He did it. He and all the American teams. And want to thank the Israeli negotiation team. We didn't prepare nothing. We are going in the roads and waiting that they will call us to arrive to Reim and to meet our son.
With us on the broadcast is Xavier Abu Eid, political analyst, joining us from Amman in Jordan. Thank you so much for taking our time and speaking to us on NewsX World. With this ceasefire now in place and the Israeli troops withdrawing, the hostages slated to be released very, very soon, there is a tone of cautious optimism that has now been struck amongst the people of both Gaza and Israel. The larger question now is, will it hold? And in your assessment, will it lead and at least pave the path towards lasting peace?
Thank you for having me in your program. I think it's just about being cautious, not even optimistic. It is a very basic document that has been signed, and it's not a peace plan. It is the framework for a ceasefire agreement. If we are to look into the points that have been presented there, we don't have any basis for a lasting peace, because in order to have this, we need a plan to end Israeli occupation, which is not even mentioned in the plan. So eventually, what we have is a plan, all we know, that is going to exchange Israeli captives for Palestinian detainees, and that will allow for Israeli forces to withdraw to something like 50% of Gaza. That's the only thing that we have guaranteed so far, but nothing else for the future.
Indeed, and speaking of the framework at large, we do know another round of negotiations is going to be taking place very, very soon. Hamas has so far remained mum on Donald Trump's demands for disarmament, as well as Trump's plan for appointing an international board of peace that he wants to head. In your assessment, could this then emerge as sticking points in the negotiations down the line?
I think this goes way beyond Hamas. Hamas does not represent the Palestinian people. To impose a foreign government in Gaza is bad for all Palestinians, not just for Hamas. And I think if anyone is interested to have a solution, what we need to have is to reunite Gaza and the West Bank under Palestinian sovereignty, under a Palestinian leadership, and not trying formulas like Mr. Tony Blair, who has a very dark past in this region. So eventually, those kind of formulas are not there to be. Now, if we're talking about, for example, Hamas leaving the government, I think they have been very clear that they could do that. And by the way, they could have done that a month ago, actually even more than a year ago, if Israel would have been willing to do so through negotiations and not through a genocide.
Indeed, and you've referred to the different factions that exist in Palestine itself. They have their own internal tussle. What's really needed to reconcile these factions to ensure that post-war reconstruction takes place properly?
What we would expect is for President Mahmoud Abbas to lead a process of national dialogue that is going to bring Palestinians under the umbrella of the PLO, the Palestine Liberation Organization, which is a party that has signed on the peace agreements with Israel, and that is recognized in the United Nations as a state by an impressive number of countries. Now, I also believe that we have to be very cautious, because no matter how many agreements the PLO has signed with Israel, Israel has violated every single agreement of those. Israel has violated every single UN resolution regarding Palestine. So anything that deals with the future, it will depend a lot on the willingness that the guarantors and the third parties, but mainly the US, will have in order to invest political capital to push Israel into a solution and not to continue with the current status quo. Just today, 17 Palestinians were killed in Gaza so far, even though people are talking about a ceasefire.
Indeed. Meanwhile, humanitarian aid is set to flow more freely, with the Rafah border crossing with Egypt reopening next week as well. There are hundreds of aid trucks already queued to enter Gaza. We're also seeing a lot of displaced Palestinians finally heading back home, but their homes are not the same way as when they were forced to leave. They're now reduced to rubble. There's a lot of issue as far as access to medical facilities is concerned, because hospitals have also been reduced to rubble. They've been completely destroyed. Schools have been destroyed as well. In your assessment, then what else is required? How long will this process take for the Palestinians to then return to how life used to be?
It will be a tremendous process. And I think what's important from a strategic perspective is to be able to jump from a genocide to a political solution that ensures a two-state solution, which is the solution that the international community supports. Not to go from the situation we have now with Gaza in the rubble, with over 90% of Gaza destroyed. I mean, Israel could not argue that 90% of Gaza were Hamas or legitimate targets. Now, when you have this amount of destruction, the goal was very clear. It was to provoke an ethnic cleansing of Gaza, which was something that many Israeli ministers actually said on the record. What we have now is that Israeli option failed. We have people going back, but as you have clarified, they are going back sometimes just to the rubble of their houses to put a tent over the rubble. So I think the idea or the need to rebuild Gaza should come first, in a way, of course, that it's conducive with Palestinian national interests. And just to conclude, I would say that it's very important for Palestinians to see that the international community will continue the pressure in order to turn this tremendous international solidarity into political action. What we need is a political solution. We don't need anymore to be treated just as a humanitarian issue.
Absolutely. And speaking of a political solution, we've recently seen the Israelis trying to annex the West Bank. Trump has stated that he will not allow Netanyahu to do so. What do you think has spurred Trump's position regarding this? Because so far the US has been okay with what Israel has been doing. What could have possibly set off Trump to come out and make the statements and issue a very stern warning to Israel?
I think surprisingly, Donald Trump is acting like the adult in the room for Israel and not for Palestine. Benjamin Netanyahu is an extremist who has destroyed the prospects of a peace process all over his political career. He has succeeded in doing that. And I think he kind of got drunk in the culture of impunity that he received and believed that he could do anything. And I think President Donald Trump understands that. He has said this on the record, that Israel is entirely isolated from the rest of the international community, that they cannot continue doing so. And I think the turning point was the Israeli aggression against Qatar, which is a very close ally of the US. And I think it was that moment when the Trump administration decided to take further action. Further action, why? I think, to be honest, it's in the interest mainly of Israel not to be isolated from the rest of the international community. It's also in the interest of Palestinians not to be killed by hundreds on a daily basis. However, I would say that it's up to Israel to listen to their closest ally, the US, and understand that the times when Israel could do anything they wanted, I think, are over.
And my last and final question, since you've referred to the past, stating that Israel has not honored its commitments, what lessons can then be drawn from the past, especially when it comes to the implementation of this peace framework?
I think Israel-Palestine should be treated just like any other countries worldwide, and they should be held accountable and not being treated as any state above the law. And I think that's very important, because when we get engaged historically in the Middle East peace process, usually the US and Israel push for not taking action in international forums, for example. Now, let's remember that Benjamin Netanyahu is wanted for war crimes and crimes against humanity by the ICC. How many countries are going to continue meeting with him, receiving him, legitimizing someone who could actually come out from the International Court of Justice, someone who led a genocide? We're talking about a huge crime that took place here. Genocide is the biggest of all crimes that could be committed, and therefore, I think what's needed now is to prioritize accountability, not to allow impunity to prevail, and for the third parties to be very clear with regards to consequences that will take place if the agreement is not implemented.
All right, so with that, I would like to thank you for taking our time and speaking to us on NewsX World as we track these very crucial developments. With that, viewers, we shift our focus away from the Middle East to East Asia. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has overseen a large military parade displaying its new intercontinental ballistic missile in front of visiting international dignitaries. The parade marked the 80th anniversary of the foundation of its ruling Workers' Party. Chinese Premier Li Qiang, Russia's former president Dmitry Medvedev, as well as Vietnam's Communist Party chief To Lam were seen at Kim's side at the parade. In the military parade itself, nuclear-armed North Korea has displayed its most advanced Hwasong-20 intercontinental ballistic missile. Earlier, Kim Jong-un had held talks with Medvedev, who stated that the sacrifice of North Korean soldiers fighting for Russia in its military campaign in Ukraine has proved the trust and relations between the two countries. Kim Jong-un has told Medvedev that he hopes to continue strengthening cooperation with Russia and to closely engage in diverse exchanges in order to achieve common goals. Now, even Vietnam and North Korea have signed agreements of cooperation in various fields, including between their defense, foreign and health ministries. Shifting focus to South Asia, particularly Pakistan, the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan has claimed responsibility for a wave of deadly attacks across the country's northwest that has left at least 23 people dead. Now, authorities say that the coordinated assaults have taken place across several districts of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, a province near the Afghan border. 11 paramilitary troops were killed in the Khyber district, while a suicide bomber struck a police training school, killing 7 officers. In a separate clash in Bajaur district, 5 more people, including 3 civilians, also lost their lives. The attack marks one of the deadliest escalations by the TTP in recent months. With us on the broadcast is Major General Sudhakarji, Senior Geopolitical and Strategic Defense Expert, joining us from New Delhi. Thank you so much, sir, for taking our time and speaking to us on NewsX World. We've in fact recently seen a spate of these attacks across Pakistan. The TTP has been intensifying such attacks over the last couple of months. Once again, are we seeing snakes biting Pakistan back?
Yep, yeah, good afternoon. Thank you for getting me for your show. Absolutely, you nailed it in your preamble. And the snake which Pakistan was nurturing so far in the backyard seems it is actually biting back the host who was actually nurturing it. So suffice to say, we must understand as to why is it happening the way it is happening. You see, Tehreek Taliban Pakistan essentially has got 3 fundamental demands. The first demand is they do not respect the Durand line. In any case, it has lost its relevance. Even if somebody has to respect it from the date of origin being 1893, and the agreement was meant for 100 years, the tenability and its relevance have actually were lost out after 1993. One, they do not believe and apply the theory of Durand line. On either side of the Durand line, they have Pashtuns living. They want to create a Pashtunistan. Second is they want to run their own parallel government based on Sharia law. And the third and most important thing is that they do not respect the existing structure, that is the government structure which is there prevalent in Pakistan. So therefore, to meet their demand, they have been actually launching strikes at the Pakistan military in the security apparatus from time to time. But what is of relevance at the moment is that consequent to a couple of incidents which have taken place in the recent past, the border areas astride the Durand line, they have been attacked by the Tehreek Taliban Pakistan in protest against a couple of their demands not being meted out by the Pakistan security apparatus. So it's kind of a vengeance. And Pakistan Armed Forces, particularly the Air Force, has gone in to actually avenge itself and struck a target there in Kabul in last 48 hours. And that has actually triggered subsequent blowback by the Tehreek Taliban Pakistan. I understand and I presume that the Taliban in Afghanistan and Tehreek Taliban Pakistan, they have tacit understanding and coordination. And that's how the intensity has picked up momentum in past 48 to 72 hours. Back to you, Pia.
Indeed, and speaking of what's been taking place, these recent strikes that you've referred to, the Afghan foreign minister is in New Delhi. He has slammed what he's called the violation of Afghanistan's sovereignty by Pakistan. What are the geopolitical implications of such a statement?
Oh, very serious geopolitical implications. I don't want to draw any parallel like in a couple of other international channels, they were actually drawing attention to what Pakistan ISI has gone about doing in Bangladesh. So it is a counter to that. No, it is not like that. You can't put, zero-sum game here. You see, the issue is India needs Afghanistan as much as Afghanistan needs India. It is to be seen from that perspective. India has already invested something close to $3 billion. People-centric developmental activities, be it the Parliament House, construction of Hydel Power Station, the schooling facilities, college education, scholarship being given to the Afghan people, and accordingly the visa also being relaxed, medical treatment, etc., etc. So that apart, what else am I trying to highlight is that Pakistan being where it is at a crossroad of, you would say, Central Asian Republic, you have the West Asia to the west, you have South Asia to the south, and being where it is, geostrategically speaking, it assumes a strategic, very, very important location for India. And particularly to address the threats which are emerging out of Pakistan from the non-state actors. They call non-state, I call them as state actors, because without that Pakistan is nothing. So in order to address them, there is a requirement to not to open up a new front, but to actually deflate the very concept of strategic depth which Pakistan has been claiming with regard to Afghanistan. While Pakistan may be calling Afghanistan as a strategic depth, and Afghanistan itself has been addressing Afghanistan as a strategic curse. For India, it is a strategic distraction. Now this strategic distraction has started assuming an orientation of a kind of a diversion, I would say, in order to teach Pakistan a lesson so as to prevent another Pahalgam taking place. It's about time India assumes and takes very important and relevant steps in 21st century. Pakistan has to be taught a lesson squarely and boldly, and hence India has to invest its time, energy, resources, and diplomacy in a very, very tactful manner, and taking advantage or making use of the offers and the services which Afghanistan is wanting as a help and service from India. We need to actually establish ourselves in order to teach Pakistan a lesson and keep it actually hemmed in nice and properly.
Indeed, and speaking of India, we do know the Afghan foreign minister has met with Dr. Jaishankar in New Delhi. That's not all. In fact, New Delhi will be reopening its embassy in Kabul, which it had temporarily, in fact, disbanded after US troops had withdrawn in 2021. We also saw that India participated at the Moscow format meeting that had taken place recently, where all countries had come out and slammed attempts by external parties to interfere in Afghanistan's internal relations. This was, of course, a veiled statement that was directed to the United States with respect to the Bagram Air Base demand that Donald Trump has been making. In light of this, how crucial is it that India ensures that its continued relations with Afghanistan improves in order to check Pakistan, and Pakistan that is becoming increasingly bold with the recent, sort of turn that the Trump administration has taken?
Unfortunately, yes. In your statement lies the answer, Pia. It's very relevant observation made by you. You see, geopolitically speaking, it is taking a very unpredictable and unfavorable turn of events in the world order today. The same Pakistan who used to be addressed by Donald Trump in 2018 and 19 that they had paid something to the tune of $33 billion. All that they have got from Pakistan was lies and the deceit. And same Pakistan has been taken on the lap of Donald Trump. It is not understandable. I don't think any of the advisors in the USA would be understanding the game plan. Is there any strategy? The old saying goes, the tactics without strategy is like noise before a defeat. So to me, it appears to be a noise before defeat, but then it is at the detriment, it is at the cost of regional stability. It is actually causing so much of turbulence. In order to have balance of power, India has to invest time, energy, and resources to have a foothold in Afghanistan and look for taking over Bagram airfield as early as possible under some pretext or other. I really don't know. Our constitution does not allow deployment of our troops in any country for any such purposes except for United Nations. How the United Nations is to be deployed in Bagram airfield under that flagship or the banner, India could have its troops present there in Bagram airfield so that it is denied to both or multiple stakeholders, whether it is China or it is America. Afghanistan, in any case, the present Taliban regime has made it very, very clear that Bagram airfield will not be given to America at any cost, nor to the Chinese. So therefore, India is the only relevant and appropriate stakeholder who could bid for it, or even without bidding, the Taliban is already offering to India. India must put the best foot forward and locate itself at Bagram, because by locating there, we are having easy access to Central Asian Republic, one. Number two, we can keep an eye on Pakistan. Number three, we can also keep entry and exit and have some kind of dominance by means of surveillance through the Wakhan corridor connecting with China and Afghanistan. Back to you, Pia.
All right, sir. With that, I would like to thank you for taking out time, sharing your perspective on this very, very crucial development. With that, viewers, we're tracking some further updates from Pakistan. Violent clashes have broken out between police and Islamists in the Pakistani city of Lahore after security forces tried to stop thousands of protesters from leaving for Islamabad, where agitators took out a pro-Gaza rally outside the US Embassy. The Tehreek-e-Labbaik has claimed that the cops started firing indiscriminately at the protesters, killing 11 of its members and injuring over 50. The protests, which began on Thursday against the widespread devastation in Gaza and the death toll exceeding 65,000, intensified today as police resorted to firing tear gas and bait-and-charged agitators at multiple locations. The protesters responded by throwing stones at the police. Shifting focus to more developments, this time from Sudan. A paramilitary drone strike has killed at least 30 people at a displacement shelter in the besieged city of El Fasher in western Sudan. The Resistance Committee for El Fasher has stated that the Rapid Support Forces, which has been at war with the army since April 2023, hit the Dar al-Akram displacement center on the grounds of a university. Now, the committee has stated that the bodies of those who've lost their lives remain trapped in underground shelters, describing what's taken place as a massacre. They've also called on the international community to intervene. Remember, last month itself, a drone strike in El Fasher killed at least 75 people in a mosque. The conflict has displaced millions and pushed nearly 25 million people into severe hunger, with tens of thousands killed and many unable to access medical care. With us on the broadcast is Mr. Desmond Majikodunmi, political activist, joining us from Lagos in Nigeria. Thank you so much for taking our time and speaking to us. We've been seeing certain strikes taking place, whether in mosques, whether in displacement camps, or even market areas in El Fasher, which is the capital of North Darfur. The RSF has been carrying out these strikes. It's at odds with the army in Sudan. What exactly is happening? Where is this headed next? Of course, the bloodshed continues increasing. People are suffering. There's a famine in place as well. It's a dire humanitarian situation.
It is indeed an extremely dire situation, and it grieves one's heart and soul to see human beings perpetrating this type of horrendous activity against each other. And Sudan has not really been seen very much on the global level, but it's been going on along there. And the figures that you had just read out, 35 million people suffering from
right, sir, we'll try to get your connection sorted. There is a slight issue. I'll come back to you. But speaking of the statistics, according to the World Health Organization, there are 40,000 people who've lost their lives since this fight between the RSF and the military erupted in 2023. The World Food Programme states that nearly 25 million people are suffering from acute food shortage. They are food insecure. And in the meantime, 12 million others have been displaced. Al Fasher is, of course, the military's last stronghold in the sprawling Darfur region. Fighting between the two sides has intensified in recent months, and hundreds of civilians were killed in the RSF attacks in the area ever since the 10th of April. This according to a report by the UN Human Rights Office of the High Commissioner. In fact, some areas in Darfur currently face a dire situation, impacting people's access to healthcare and clean water as well. There are reported cholera cases that have now come to light. These cases are now increasing, and there are more than 3,000 people across all of Sudan who've died from this illness over the last 14 months of the civil war. The current outbreak of the bacterial infection caused by contaminated food or water has in fact spread to 18 states in the war-torn country after it was declared an outbreak since July of last year. All of this is information according to the WHO. Both warring sides have been accused of committing atrocities including ethnic cleansing, extrajudicial killings, sexual violence against civilians including children as well. All right, viewers, we of course have had trouble connecting back with Mr. Desmond Majikudunme, but we will continue to track all of these developments. Due to paucity of time, we must slip into a quick short break. Stay tuned on NewsX World.